Heartwarming surprise, Billionaire's incredible reaction revealed after woman bites him at Gala. Caroline was juggling trays of drinks when the unexpected moment happened. The soft glow of chandeliers illuminated the luxurious hall, laughter swirling around her like a whirlwind. She was just a waitress in a sea of elegance, trying to make ends meet while caring for her ailing father. Yet, she held her head high, her resilient spirit shining brightly against the backdrop of affluence. Then came Ethan Caldwell, the charismatic billionaire. He was everything the tabloids said: charming, generous, but also seemingly out of touch with the struggles of people like her. As she approached him, offering a drink, he playfully reached out, offering a teasing grin that sent her heart racing. Their eyes locked, and in a split second of nervousness, she misjudged his playful gesture. With a quick, instinctive bite to his finger, the room fell silent. Her face blazed a deep crimson as gasps rang out around them. What had she done? That moment, an innocent blunder, spiraled into chaos. The gala was transformed into a center for gossip. Waitress bites billionaire. The headlines blared, sensationalized accounts of their encounter plastering every social media feed. Caroline felt a tight knot in her chest, her entire being shaken by the accusations about her character swirling around her like fallen leaves in autumn, but her community knew the real Caroline. Her friends from the neighborhood rallied around her, reminding her of the late nights she spent caring for her dad, the dedication she showed by working double shifts, and how she always extended a hand to those in need. "You're not defined by that moment." Julia, her best friend, reminded her, tears glistening in her eyes. The unity of their support wrapped around her like a warm blanket, igniting a fierce sense of belonging and strength. Meanwhile, Ethan watched from a distance, his own world of privilege suddenly feeling different. He was used to being seen as a hero, but Caroline's authenticity pierced through his self-constructed bubble. He heard the whispers of support surrounding her, each voice echoing a truth that had been hidden from him. The way they spoke about her resilience made him question his own perceptions of worthiness and success. He felt a pull to defend her, to rally against the judgment that came from his own social class. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Ethan decided to speak out. He took to social media, proposing a conversation around class disparity and common decency, but it backfired. Critics labeled his message as insincere, only adding more fire to the backlash against Caroline. She stood bewildered, her distress deepening, as she faced the weight of a world so often stacked against people like her. How could a single mishap unravel everything she stood for? Was there a way to rise above the turmoil? In that moment, both Caroline and Ethan found themselves at crossroads of privilege and struggle, forced to confront their realities. Did they have the strength to bridge their worlds? As whispers and clamor continued, an unrelenting hope stirred in their hearts. They were on the edge of something significant, a chance to redefine not just their own narratives, but the societal norms that had brought them together in such an unexpected way. What would happen next? That question hung in the air, heavy yet electrifying. Ethan went to bed that night, his mind buzzing with thoughts of Caroline. He tossed and turned, his luxurious sheets feeling claustrophobic, stifling against the weight of his newfound awareness. The headlines were merciless, but it was the look of shock and then shame on Caroline's face that replayed over and over in his mind. Each time, it broke him a little more. In that grand hall, she had appeared so vulnerable, so confused by the swarm of judgment. He finally rose from bed before dawn, driven by an urge he couldn't quite articulate. He poured himself a cup of coffee and logged onto his social media accounts, determined to make a difference. He drafted and deleted posts about empathy, about the real struggle faced by those in service, but nothing felt right. He poured another cup and stared out at the city skyline, so glamorous, yet so removed from the lives of so many. Back at Caroline's apartment, the morning sun seeped through the thin curtains, illuminating the small room she shared with her father. Sipping her lukewarm coffee, she scrolled through her phone, cringing at the comments directed her way. Even as her friends rallied, the shadows of doubt loomed large. Self-doubt wrapped around her heart like a thick veil, stifling her spirit. What if this moment became her mark in the world? The waitress who bit the billionaire. Julia called, her voice crackling over the line, filled with an encouraging warmth. "Hey, Caroline. How are you holding up?" she asked, and it reminded Caroline why she fought so hard. "You know, I've been thinking, you should do something, like a charity event. A fundraiser for families in need. People will remember you for that." "It's not the best timing, Jules," Caroline sighed. I don't know how to face people. They'll remember me as that biting girl. Or as the woman who didn't let a single moment define her. Get out there, show them who you really are." Ethan, motivated by Julia's words, took to the streets. He visited local community centers and elderly homes, offering his time and resources for causes he had never considered important before. He started documenting his journey, shedding light on stories of struggle and resilience. With every moment shared, he felt a crack opening in his perfect world, revealing a deeper, richer life beneath the surface. Meanwhile, Caroline felt a spark of curiosity. What if she transformed her moment of shame into something powerful? After several deep breaths, she opened her laptop, sketching out rough ideas for an event. "Maybe this could be my moment," she murmured to herself, the thought both exciting and daunting. Days went by, and as news of Ethan's community efforts spread, Caroline noticed a shift in tone. The public perception began to soften, and interest was growing. More importantly, her own resolve strengthened. Can two people from such opposite worlds find common ground? The evening of the planned charity event loomed closer, bursting with potential. Would Ethan show? Would he come to support her, or would he remain the untouchable billionaire in the eyes of the media? That question hung heavy yet vital in the balance. Caroline's heart raced as she prepared. She was ready for something monumental. At the last moment, as she stood in front of her mirror, a thought struck her, the answer to the question that had haunted both her and Ethan. Who would they become in each other's story? With determination blooming in her chest, she was ready to find out. And just as she stepped outside, a circle of reporters swarmed around, cameras flashing. The moment of truth was about to unfold, and neither Caroline nor Ethan had any idea how it would end. Caroline took a deep breath as she stepped outside her building, her heart hammering in her chest. The shrill sounds of cameras clicking echoed in her ears, mingling with her chaotic thoughts. The moment felt surreal. "Caroline! Over here!" shouted one reporter, shoving a microphone in her direction. She hesitated, the blush rising to her cheeks under the shining lights. They were all waiting for her to say something memorable, something that would redeem her from the biting incident. But what could she say? Words felt trapped in her throat, tangled up like the conflicting emotions brewing inside her. "Stay calm," she whispered to herself. Each flash from the cameras felt invasive, but she forced herself to muster a smile, determined not to show the cracks that had formed in her confidence. As she made her way past the throng of reporters, her mind wandered to Ethan. Would he be here? There was a chance he could be waiting among the crowd, a silhouette of power and privilege, a stark contrast to her reality. But maybe, just maybe, he could see her, not just as the woman who bit him but as someone trying to turn her moment of shame into something worthwhile. The gala was set up beautifully, twinkling lights reflected against the polished floors, and vibrant flowers adorned every corner. The grandeur was overwhelming, but it was the small details, a handwritten sign thanking every donor, a child's drawing displayed on the wall that resonated with her. With every step she took into the hall, determination washed over her. This would not be her last act, it would be the start of something bigger. As the event officially began, Caroline took a deep breath, her hands clammy. She walked up to the microphone, glancing at the expectant faces in the crowd. There had been snippets of her story shared throughout the week, her bite, the media frenzy, but she had a chance now to share her truth. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice steady despite the butterflies fluttering in her stomach. "I know some of you may remember me for the wrong reasons, but I want to show you another side of who I am. I believe we all have moments in life that define us. It's what we do afterward that truly matters." As she spoke, she felt a wave of empowerment arising from within, pushing her fears aside. Talk of families in need, of struggle, and of hope flowed effortlessly from her soul. For the first time, she was beginning to see herself not as a victim, but as a warrior rising from adversity. A faint rustle caught her attention at the far end of the room. There, amongst the guests draped in finery, stood Ethan. Dressed sharply, his eyes seemed to bore into her, capturing every single word. Time froze at that moment, and everything else faded away. Would he come to her? Could they reconnect? A part of her hesitated, caught in a whirlwind of vulnerability and longing. She could see the conflict on his face too. He was processing the two worlds their lives had just collided in. Caroline finished her speech, her heart racing not just from nerves but from the energy that crackled between them. "Together, we can make change happen," she asserted, the passion in her voice unmistakable. The applause erupted in waves that felt both loud and distant at the same time. The crowd began to disperse, and she searched for Ethan, her heart pounding louder now. Would he approach her? Would they find the common ground that seemed so far away? Just when she thought he might walk away, he stepped forward, determination evident in his stride, and just as he reached her, a loud crash echoed from the other side of the hall. The tension in the air shifted. What was happening now? A sudden chaos erupted, leaving Caroline holding her breath, and fears and uncertainties spiraled back in. Would this be another moment that defined her? Or could it lead to redemption? The crash startled everyone, sending murmurs rippling through the crowd like a wave. Caroline's heart dropped, not just from the noise, but from the look in Ethan's eyes. It was a mix of worry and confusion, the kind of raw emotion that told her there was more to him than the polished exterior everyone saw. What was that? Someone whispered loudly from the side. Guests began to turn, their elegant conversations dissolving into panic as they sought the source of the commotion. Lights twinkled above them, but suddenly, the atmosphere felt heavy and charged with unease. "Ethan, didn't he look away from her?" "I don't know," he replied, his voice urgent yet steady. "Are you okay?" Her instincts kicked in, urging her to help, to be a voice of calm amidst the chaos. "Let's check it out together," she suggested, heart pounding. If they could face this moment, maybe they could face everything else too. They pushed through the crowd, getting closer to where the noise had emanated. A table had collapsed, its decorations strewn across the marble floor. Staff rushed in to manage the fallout, some fumbling nervously as they tended to toppled vases and falling candles. "Everyone, please stay calm," shouted the event coordinator. "We're handling this." As the sounds of bustling bodies filled the air, Caroline felt Ethan's hand graze her arm. The contact sent a jolt through her. "You don't have to do this," he murmured, lowering his voice so only she could hear. "You can walk away. This isn't your fight." But it was, wasn't it? She wasn't the same woman who let a single moment of anger drive her actions. "No," she said firmly, surprising herself. "If we're going to make a change, we should step up when it matters." His expression softened, and for the first time since they had split, he looked at her with a mixture of admiration and something more profound. It stirred something inside her, a desire for connection, for understanding. With a quick nod, they turned back to the chaos. People were starting to gather again, and Caroline felt the weight of their eyes on her. Some recognized her, whispers floated like dry leaves in the wind. But she couldn't let that stop her now. "Let's see if anyone needs help," she said, determination settling deep within her. Ethan looked at her, and in that fleeting moment, she saw the glimmer of recognition. Was it respect? Whatever the emotion was, it anchored her thoughts. Together, they approached the staff, offering to assist in cleaning up the mess. It felt oddly liberating, to turn away from spotlight and shine instead on those who really needed it. As the chaos subsided and laughter cautiously returned, the unexpected bonds formed amidst the cleanup transformed the gala atmosphere. Guests began to collaborate, some sharing jokes as they corralled flowers back into vases. Caroline felt the energy shift, people united by purpose rather than status. She caught Ethan watching her. His face, illuminated by the ambient light, was a story of its own, revealing a man compelled by something deeper than appearances. Could this turn into something real? Then their moment was interrupted by another voice, sharp and intrusive. Caroline. Ethan. We need a quote. It was a reporter, persistent as ever, flipping a notepad open with a flourish. Just when it seemed that everything was falling into place for Caroline and Ethan, the reality of the world outside consumed them once again. Her breath hitched, the hope she'd felt slipped away, overtaken by the anxiety of being pulled back into public scrutiny. Would the media grab this moment and twist it like they had before? Ethan moved closer, his presence warm and reassuring. Ignore them, he whispered, his eyes sparkling with rebellion against the chaos. You've got this. With his encouraging words, she realized that their shared understanding transformed an intimidating spotlight into a stage where they could shine together. But the next question lingered heavy in the air: would they seize this moment or let it slip away into the noise? As the camera flashed, Caroline's heart thudded, not just for herself, but for what could unfold. What was the next chapter of their story going to look like? As the flash of the camera erupted like a firework, Caroline felt the brightness momentarily blind her. She squinted, caught between the press of bodies and the weight of expectations. The moment stretched. In the bustling ambience, the laughter and chatter of the gala faded, leaving only the thud of her rapidly beating heart in her ears. Ethan's warm presence enveloped her, his shoulder brushing against hers. It was a small but grounding reminder that they were in this together. Ignoring the reporter's insistent requests for a quote, she focused on the people around them, guests still buzzing, attempting to piece together the remnants of their disrupted evening. But for Caroline, everything felt vastly different now. Caroline. The reporter called out again, this time more urgently, cutting through the fragile camaraderie they had built. She turned, the pressure of her conscience pushing against her. The last time she had interacted with the media, it had been a disaster. Twisted narratives and downright lies had clouded her life. But now, there was a glimmer of defiance igniting inside her. She understood that this was the moment to reclaim her story, to step out of the shadow of past mistakes. Just a moment, she finally responded, raising her chin. The thrill of empowerment surged through her, contrasting sharply with the anxiety that churned deep within. Ethan glanced at her, an unmistakable mix of pride and concern flickering in his eyes. Are you sure you want to do this? He asked quietly, his voice a soft anchor in the storm of flashing cameras and scrutinizing gazes. Taking a breath, Caroline nodded. I need to say something. This time it has to be from me. She stepped in front of the reporter, straining to present the calm surface she wanted to convey despite the storm brewing inside her. We were just helping clean up a mess, she stated, her voice clear as she faced the lens. What matters is the spirit of community, not the chaos. We all have a role to play. The reporter couldn't hide her surprise, the immediate shift from the previous chaos to a momentary pause in inquiry. Yet, the response was met with the rustle of cameras snapping madly. As she spoke, something remarkable happened. Caroline felt a flicker of recognition from within the crowd, not just from Ethan, but from guests who were captivated by her authenticity. There was a sincerity in her words that resonated. Maybe it was the fearlessness she spoke with or the determination that sparkled in her eyes. Whatever it was, it quickly disseminated through the onlookers, igniting conversations and camaraderie fueled by shared experience. Ethan stepped closer, visibly impressed. You really just did that, he said, a proud smile spreading across his face. She laughed nervously, unexpected warmth flushing through her. I guess I did. The gala resumed its rhythm, people returning to their conversations, intertwining under a newfound excitement, courtesy of her brave stand. The atmosphere transformed, laughter bubbled up again, mingling with the clink of glasses. The shift was palpable. Instead of just a gathering of the elite, it felt like a genuine celebration of resilience even amidst calamity. As they stepped back from the media's scrutinizing gaze, Caroline felt Ethan's hand slip into hers, fingers intertwining in a gesture that spoke louder than any words. It wasn't just about the moment they faced. It felt as if they were embarking on something new together. "What's next for us?" Ethan asked, his voice low and rich with possibility. It was a question that hung in the air, weighted with the uncertainty of futures yet to unfold. But as they stood there, hand in hand, the world around them faded again. What new adventures lay waiting in the shadows, ready to break into the light? Would they explore this connection further or allow the world to pull them apart again? Caroline felt a rush of adrenaline after her moment before the camera. Everyone was still buzzing with excitement, the gala transforming back into a lively celebration. Her pulse thrummed in her ears, a drum roll against the backdrop of laughter and clinking glasses. But beneath the exhilaration lay a question that gnawed at her: what was next? Ethan's fingers tightened around hers, grounding her. He pulled her closer, the warmth of his body mingling with the chill of the evening. "I didn't know you had it in you," he said softly, admiration etched in his features. "You were amazing." She searched his eyes. "Do you really think so?" The shreds of anxiety still lingered, and she needed his reassurance. "Absolutely," he replied, his smile radiant. But behind the pride, there was a hint of concern. "Just, be careful. You don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders." For a brief, fleeting moment, Caroline considered his words. The burden of expectations had crushed her in the past, but lately, it felt lighter. Choosing this moment to stand up, to speak truth, had been purifying. But could she really protect herself from the inevitable scrutiny ahead? A nearby couple, still buzzing from her speech, approached with wide eyes and encouraging smiles. "That was incredible," one of them exclaimed. "You really made us think." Amidst their flattery, Caroline caught sight of a few glaring faces in the corner, the wealthy elite who often dictated the narratives around her. Their eyes, filled with judgment, sent a chill down her spine. What would they say? How would they twist her moment? Ethan noticed her sudden shift and leaned in closer, lowering his voice. "Ignore them. Look at all the people you inspired tonight. That's what matters." Inspired. The word resonated in her mind. An idea began to blossom. Could they turn the narrative around? If she could find her voice here, maybe she could elevate others like her. Those often overshadowed, forgotten in the glimmer of wealth and status. If reading her thoughts, Ethan suggested, what if we host something? A community event to bring people together. Highlight real stories, struggles, and victories. Caroline's heart surged. "I love that. We could even shine a light on local charities, unearth hidden talents." Her excitement poured out in a stream of ideas, and Ethan's attentive gaze ignited the spark further. They could do something bigger than themselves, create a ripple of change not just for her but for countless others who felt voiceless. But just as the vision began to solidify, a voice cut through the joyful chatter. "You think community events will erase the past?" A tall figure, a snicker escaping from his lips, stepped forward. Caroline recognized him instantly, a former associate from a chaotic chapter in her life. His presence was like a shadow lacing through her light. "I can't believe you're still trying to play the Good Samaritan." His sneer radiated distaste, and the crowd started to turn, whispering and watching intently. Ethan stepped forward protectively, placing a firm hand on Caroline's shoulder. "You don't know her. You never did." Tension rippled through the gathered guests, the atmosphere shifting in an instant. It was as if time had frozen, and every heartbeat echoed doubts and fears. Would her moment of bravery crumble again under judgment? Caroline took a deep breath, feeling the heat rising in her cheeks. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about community, about healing, about rising from the ashes. "You're wrong," she said, voice steady despite the internal tremors. "We all deserve a second chance. Everyone deserves a voice, including you." The crowd murmured, their eyes darting between the two. Ethan's gaze turned fierce. "Let us show him how strong we are together." A fire ignited within Caroline, daring her toward the spotlight again. But would she have the strength to keep it burning? As the weight of the moment pressed deeper, the question hung there, heavy yet hopeful. What was she truly willing to fight for? The gala was no longer just an event, it was the beginning of something pivotal. Would she seize this chance or let the shadows close in again? The crowd's murmurs faded, replaced by a deafening silence as Caroline's words lingered in the air. She held her breath, the weight of vulnerability settling like a heavy cloak around her shoulders. The glare from her former associate's smirk made her skin crawl, but something deep within her stoked a defiant flame. Ethan stood by her, unwavering. His steadfastness provided strength, yet Caroline's heart raced, a tumult of hope and fear thundering in her chest. She'd taken a stand, but now the question was how far she could go. Could her declaration spark a movement, or would the past consume her once more? The man who had challenged her shifted his stance, trying to regain control of the room. "You still think your little party will change anything?" he scoffed, crossing his arms. "People like us don't just forget." "Maybe," Caroline replied, her voice steady but her hands trembling. "But maybe we can inspire change." She looked around at the unfamiliar faces that encircled them, each demonstrating a mixture of curiosity and intrigue. This wasn't about the wealthy elite who overshadowed her. It was about the individuals in the crowd, those who needed a voice, just like her. "Let this be a lesson," Ethan urged, his hand resting lightly on her back, a silent cue of support. "You've got to believe in something bigger than fear." His words held weight, forging a connection between them, a mutual understanding that rang louder than any judgment. The compassion in his eyes ignited the fierceness within her, and Caroline felt empowered. She straightened her spine and took a step forward, letting go of the past's grasp. "I want everyone to know," she began, each word punctuated by rising conviction, "we are more than our mistakes. More than how others define us. We are capable of growth, of healing. And together, we can elevate every story out there." The crowd's response was mixed, some seemed taken aback while others leaned in, a few whispers of agreement catching her ear. It was a crack in the wall, and she was determined to push through it. "Community events don't erase the past," she continued, "but they can shed light on our future. Imagine a place where people gather to share their real struggles and triumphs. Imagine relating to one another and building each other up." A palpable energy shifted in the room. Faces once obscured with skepticism began to soften, curiosity sparking to life. She could feel the potential gathering, stirring the energy around her. At that moment, Caroline realized that she wasn't just fighting for herself. She was fighting for every dream unspoken, every life brushed aside. And there, beneath the extravagant decor of the gala, a vision was forming. That a hand clasped hers, a firm but gentle gesture that guided her heart. Together Ethan whispered, the intensity of his gaze urging her onward, but the shadow of her past remained, that former associate still sneering, ready to undermine her ambition. "What makes you any different from the crowd?" he taunted, unyielding. "You really think people are going to change for you?" Caroline locked eyes with him. "Maybe not everyone, but if I can reach just one person, that's enough for me. Because every voice matters." As the crowd reacted, she sensed the tide beginning to turn. The snicker faltered, replaced with a quiet murmur of support. Yet, even within that surge of encouragement, a thread of uncertainty loomed. Would it withstand the scrutiny? The evening's energy fizzed with potential and apprehension. In the push and pull of responses, one thing was certain: Caroline was not about to let fear chain her to the past. Just then, a chime echoed across the gala hall, cutting through the tension like a well-aimed arrow. Figures began to shuffle and shift, making way for the night's finale, but Caroline's heartbeat matched the rhythm of the moment. As she stood on the precipice of something transformative, she could feel it. Change was possible, but the fight had just begun. Would she have the strength to ensure her voice was heard when it mattered most? The swirling crowd faded slightly as she centered herself, a question drifting to the forefront of her mind: what challenges awaited her now on the path to change both personal and public? The gala hall buzzed as the spotlight dimmed, the energy crackling in the air like the moment before lightning strikes. Caroline stood at the edge of a precipice, not just an architectural one but a deeply personal one. She had thrown herself into the arena of public debate, but the stakes felt unimaginably high. Ethan's presence beside her was a lifeline. "You've got this," he whispered, though his eyes betrayed the weight of his confidence. As the evening's formalities began to unfold around them, Caroline focused on her breathing, in and out, grounding herself as the distant sounds of music blended into an awkward harmony of clinking glasses and low chatter. She had opened her heart to a crowd filled with varying shades of skepticism and hope. Yet, just like a painter mixing colors, she knew one stroke could make all the difference. When the gala's host clapped his hands for attention, Caroline felt a pull in her gut. This was it, the moment of truth. The host, a charismatic figure, beamed at the crowd, tapping into the collective anticipation. Tonight is not just a celebration of success, but a chance to listen, to share, and create meaningful connections, he declared. Caroline shared a glance with Ethan. He nodded subtly, encouragement swirling in his steady gaze. She could feel the pulse of the room shift, an undercurrent of potential brewing just beneath the surface. As he introduced the night's key speaker, a well-known entrepreneur, Caroline's heart raced. Each word spoken by the speaker became a double-edged sword, inspiring yet mocking her own resolve. The man talked about overcoming adversity, about rising above, yet Caroline found herself asking how genuine was his message. Another glimmer of vulnerability crept in. Would she be able to stand before these people once more, armed with her honesty? Taking a breath, she glanced around the room. Eyes were wide, darting from the speaker to one another. For the first time, Caroline understood it wasn't about winning the crowd, but about striking a chord within individuals willing to listen. As the speech ended, applause erupted, ringing through the chandeliers like a church bell. Caroline stood up, heart pounding. When would her moment come to speak again? An unexpected stirring behind her caught her attention. Her former associate was navigating through the crowd, a sinister look dancing in his eyes. "What's next?" he sneered, cutting through the chatter, his voice low enough for her to hear. "Another sob story?" Before she could even muster a response, Ethan moved closer, a protective barrier by her side. "It's not a sob story," he said, a hint of anger warming his voice. "It's truth." The crowd was growing restless. Caroline could feel their collective energy shifting, sensing their curiosity mingling with a desire for authenticity. It was now or never. "Excuse me," she said firmly, with a newfound steadiness. "I have something to say." She stepped out into the open space, fully aware of the many eyes locked onto her. With her pulse thrumming, her voice resonated across the gala like a thread weaving through fabric. "Tonight, let us celebrate not just our achievements, but our struggles. Because facing them is where the real power lies." Surprised murmurs rippled through the crowd. Caroline felt the weight of every stare, every ear straining to catch her words. It felt right, almost liberating. Then, suddenly, there was clanging the sound of a dish crashing to the floor. All eyes turned to the chaos unfolding at the back of the hall, where one of the attendees had stumbled and was now scrambling to help her friend. The moment hung like ripe fruit. Caroline's heart pounded. Should she step back? Could this disaster be the end of the breakthrough she felt was bubbling? In the commotion, she caught a glimpse of Ethan, his brows knitted in concern but determination unwavering. His eyes spoke clearly, she needed to seize this moment before it slipped away. "Change happens in chaos too," Caroline shouted, trying to redirect the attention back toward the conversation about voices being heard. "Let us use this moment to lift each other up." But in the distance, that mocking laughter returned, almost dismissive. As the crowd began to murmur again, she felt the shadows of doubt creeping in around her heart. Would her message break through the noise, or would the past send her tumbling down once again? As she stood, breath catching in her throat, Caroline wondered, what if tonight was just a chance to create a movement but was also where she faced the culmination of everything she feared? The air thickened with tension as Caroline's voice hung in the balance, echoing back at her from the walls. She felt suspended between doubt and determination. The cacophony of the crowd grew louder, a mix of concern and curiosity bubbling like a pot about to overflow. Then, just as her heartbeat thudded in her ears, a woman stepped forward from the crowd. She was a stranger to Caroline but seemed familiar in her uncertainty. "What do you mean by struggles?" she asked, her voice shaking slightly. "It's easy to say we should lift each other up, but how do we really do that?" The question crystallized the moment. This was it. This was why Caroline had come here tonight. "Great question," Caroline replied, her voice shaking at first but steadying with each word. "We build connections. We listen. Sometimes, it's just about being real with each other." She scanned the crowd, locking eyes with several faces, a nod here, a furrowed brow there. "What I'm saying is, we all have battles. We let those battles define us, or we can choose to define ourselves in spite of them." The murmurs changed, turning into low whispers of contemplation. A few people began to shift forward. Their interest piqued, they leaned closer, ready to lean into the raw truth she was offering. "I've struggled too," she continued, allowing the weight of her experience to bleed into her voice. "When I lost my job, I felt like I had lost my identity. It was hard to admit I wasn't okay. I thought I needed to wear a mask of strength. But the truth? I was drowning. I found help, I found friends, and through vulnerability, I found a path to my own strength." A collective sigh seemed to ripple through the audience, absorbing her words like a sponge. Caroline could feel herself tapping into a reservoir of shared sorrow and strength, gnawing away at the skepticism that had plagued her all night. "Together, we can lean on each other," she pressed on. "We can create spaces where it's okay to be honest about how tough life can be. Supporting one another is the antidote to what divides us." The energy shifted, Caroline could almost grab it with her hands. A few brave souls in the audience began to clap softly. At first, it was hesitant, uncertain, but then it grew stronger, buffering against the mocking laughter from before. Ethan edged closer, pride flickering in his gaze as he joined in the applause, his hands loud and sure. "Yes," he called out, his voice cutting through the din. "This is what we need. Authenticity." Caroline felt her heart swell. The goal wouldn't just be to break through the noise, it would be to transform it into a symphony of support. But just as she thought she could ride the wave, that familiar icy voice sneered from the back again. "And what do you know about real struggles? You haven't seen the world outside your bubble." The air shifted abruptly, tension rising again. Who was this person to throw shade on her fight? Yet, instead of recoiling, Caroline took a deep breath. "Maybe you're right," she said, her voice steady, laced with compassion. "But isn't that the point? We all have different stories. Let us share them instead of tearing each other down." The awkwardness hung in the air like shadows searching for light. Would they engage? Would they open their hearts? In the next moment, a hand shot up on the left of the crowd. "What if we created a support network?" A petite woman proposed, her voice breaking through the noise. "A space to share our challenges?" Eyes turned to Caroline, expectant and hopeful. As they all leaned in together, Caroline felt like she was on the brink of something profound. It was as if her words had sown seeds in the crowd, sparking real connections, pushing back against ignorance and fear. But just as her spirits soared, a loud crash echoed again, this time more haunting. Turning, Caroline caught sight of the same woman who had lost her footing moments ago. She was now face down on the floor, panic in her eyes. "Someone call." Caroline's heart dropped. "Get help. As chaos erupted again, she felt her emerging connections shatter like fragile glass. In that moment, she realized how precarious the path to connection could be. Would she be able to gather her courage one last time? As bystanders rushed to assist, the question nagged at her: would she let the chaos silence her voice, or would she stand tall amid the storm? Caroline's heart raced as she watched the crowd react to the woman who had fallen. Shadows of uncertainty trickled back in, threatening to snuff out the light she had ignited just moments before. But as she felt the weight of every gaze intensifying, a familiar sense of determination sparked within her. This was her moment to push through the noise and continue what she had started. "Stay calm," she shouted, her voice ringing through the gathering crowd, cutting through the anxiety. She rushed forward, Adam's apple rising in her throat, leaving behind the whispers of her former associate. As she knelt by the fallen woman, the memories of her own struggles washed over her, anchoring her. The woman lay there, bewildered but breathing, and Caroline could sense the weight of fear lifting. She took her hand. "You're not alone. Help is coming. You're going to be okay," she reassured her, squeezing gently. The eyes of those around them followed her every move, and for a moment, everyone held their breath, the room suspended in collective hope. Ethan stepped in beside her, supporting the woman and providing strength. "Stay with us. Just focus on your breathing. We're right here," he directed, his voice steady and soothing. Caroline felt the heat from his body, an anchor amidst the unfolding crisis. People began to rally, spreading out to find phone signals and gather as many resources as they could. Whispers of solidarity floated like a gentle hymn across the room. "Does anyone know CPR? Can someone get the paramedics?" As they waited, Caroline intensified her focus, her heart pounding. The thoughts of her prior fears of being seen only as the biter faded into the background. This was about something far greater than reputation. It was about community, empathy, and real connection. Finally, the sirens wailed in the distance, a chorus of urgency filling the air. The sight revitalized them, bringing a wave of relief. As paramedics rushed in, Caroline saw that familiar feeling of unity crackling through the crowd. When the medics took over, she felt a swift sense of pride for everyone present. They had risen to the occasion together. "Thank you for being here," the woman murmured, tears glistening in her eyes. "I didn't expect all of you." Caroline grinned, warmth swelling inside her. "We're stronger together. Never forget that." In that fleeting moment, Caroline saw the interplay of fear and valor reflected in everyone's eyes. They weren't just a group of strangers anymore, they were linked, an intricate web of humanity. As the paramedics carried the woman out, Caroline felt a warmth spread through her heart. This experience unified her with those present at the gala, transforming the chaos into something beautiful. "Can you feel it?" Ethan turned to her, and the corners of his mouth curled upwards. There was an energy in his expression that mirrored her own, an awakening. "Yes," Caroline replied, her voice steady, a smile breaking across her face. "We can change things, can't we?" They turned to each other, the gravity of their moment amplifying their connection. The gala began to morph into a celebration of resilience. The crowd, still buzzing, has shifted from anxiety to purpose, joining the call for real conversation about struggles, support, and change. Perhaps her bite hadn't defined her after all. Maybe it was the courage that followed. "Let us create that community event," Ethan said as they stepped away, still close together. "Let us show everyone how we can do this right. I want to dig into the neighborhoods, meet actual people, and share their stories." Caroline exclaimed, firing up with renewed passion. "This is our chance to make an impact." As the dancing began, laughter spilled into the evening air, breathing life back into the gala. Caroline felt it within herself, too, a renewed hope, a fierce determination blossoming out of the ashes. "Are you ready for what comes next?" Ethan asked, excitement glimmering in his eyes. "More than ever," she declared, buoyant. With their hands intertwined, they stepped into the night, their spirits entwined in purpose. The path ahead was uncertain, yet the kindling flame of change had ignited, ready to spread. Together, they would take on not only their past judgments but also a future filled with authentic connection, and they would bring others along with them. As the night deepened, the moon hung low and bright, casting its light on the both of them, a promise of new beginnings and limitless possibilities. The world wasn't waiting for the change, it was begging for it. They were just getting started. Now, to every one of you who listened to Caroline and Ethan's story, it's your turn. Don't miss out on what comes next. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories, leave a like now to feed the algorithm and support us in sharing more incredible tales. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending below. This is your moment to interact. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Together we can create a movement of change.